Hello, everyone. This is Troy Parkins, the marketing director from Triton Leadership Coaching. And I have a super special guest with me today, the amazing David Gerrold. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you.
David is a science fiction screenwriter and novelist, Hugo Award winner, and you probably have seen this, Trouble with Tribbles. He wrote the script for that, and I just learned something in my research about you that I've never known since I've known you, that you created the Sleestaks.
Yes, I did. It's a long story about how that show came into being, but Sid Croft had a lot of really great ideas, and but when I started to put them all together, I said, I have to drop this one out, but I can put this instead, and so somewhere in there, I thought, let's have some really tall, giant, insect-like lizard men, and we'll get basketball players, and we'll put them on stilts, and we'll give them 9 feet tall, so they're really scary. And we'll have them around the land of the lost. And I cannot tell you how many people have told me that when they were 5 years old, the Sleestaks made them pee their pants. So I was like, yeah, I got my job done. I scared the crap out of little kids. So.
Yeah, amazing. Hey, and I think you just dropped some great knowledge right there. That you got basketball players, 7 feet tall basketball players, in addition to put them on stilts to make them 9 feet tall.
We got the USC basketball team, and they were big guys. They were tall. I mean, even before we put them up, the boots were like a foot high. And then, it's like you would be looking up at these guys, and you get this crick in your neck to try to talk to them. But they were great guys. They were fun. They were really nice guys.
That's amazing. So in addition to all of that, I understand you're writing a couple books now. You have that going. You taught at Pepperdine University for 20 years. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But I want to get into how you've been in the transformational space. You've been in for quite some time. And it's remarkable how that has basically integrated into your life, into your profession. And just speak a little bit how I don't know if you fell into it or if it was planned or, how that all came about, David.
Excuse me, my nose, I don't have the flu or coronavirus. It's just my nose has been itching all day. What happened was, I knew a lot of, I was like in my 30s, and I knew a lot of other science fiction writers, and we had kind of a pretty good community in LA. And Theodore Sturgeon and his wife had done the EST training, and they invited my housemate, and he went, not me, God knows, I was hostile. And but my buddy Dennis had such a strong, powerful reaction. I said, all right, I'm going to go do this thing, right? And I literally said, I'll be damned if I'm going to let you be more enlightened than me. and I wasn't sure. I don't know what I'm going to get out of this training thing, but I'll go and do it and find out what it is. And so they said, what do you want to get out of this? And I said, I don't know. I want to be a better writer and make some more money. And I was doing pretty good. And my buddy Dennis said, make a wish list. And so I took out a notebook and made a list of a dozen things I wanted to do. And they were stuff mostly. I wanted a classic Cougar convertible. I want to go to Hawaii. I want to go to Australia. I want to go to Paris. I want to make more money. And so I went and did the course, and what I got out of it is it was one of the greatest writing courses ever because it was about communication. The S training was about how you experience yourself, and the exercises truly get you back in touch with your body. To this day, I'm conscious of the body exercises that we did. Very experiential. And then it was about communicating with integrity and honesty and authenticity, which and a beautiful definition of the word bullshit, which is anything you do to avoid responsibility, which is explanations, justifications, rationalizations, and so on. So I took the novel I was working on, which was like 300 or 400 pages, and went through it with a black marking pen, because in those days we worked with pen and paper and typewriters, and crossed off every sentence that was explanation. I was left with about 60 pages, but it was brilliant. I mean, it was like there was the heart and soul of the story, was the experience trimmed of all of the explanations. And so it shifted my writing. And I became a better writer, and I started making more money. And I went to Paris twice and Australia twice, and 2 classic Hugo Award. I noticed when I looked at my list a year or 2 later that I had done everything on it twice. And overkill, right? And probably because I wasn't sure I'd done it right the first time. But there was something on my list that I had not written down. And because I said, no, I'll never get it. But I ended up realizing I really want to adopt a kid. I want to adopt a little boy and have a family of my own. And I discovered that the tools that I had gotten out of the various trainings I had done and the communication workshops and the this and the that, I said, well, you know what? I'll go and apply. I'll have it be a great adventure. Win or lose, I am going to go into this. I'm going to do my research. I'm going to approach this with everything I've learned about taking on big challenges, which is really what a good workshop is about, is taking on a challenge and breaking it down into all the different particles and solving the particles one at a time until you get there. And I qualified as an adoptive parent in 4 months, which they usually say, oh, it's a year, 2 years. But no, I did this, what's next? I did this, what's next? I did this. And I went to an Adoptive Families of America convention, found a picture of a little boy in a book, in a photo listing album of children awaiting parents, fell in love with the picture. It's just an adorable kid. They told me all the reasons why he was a bad candidate for adoption, and all I heard was, this kid needs a dad a lot. And I said, I'm going to meet him, and if he's got a big heart, I know it'll work. And I met him, and I fell in love with him in the first 5 minutes, and he did too. And they did not believe the adoption would succeed, because they knew I had done my research, but I think they thought I was some kind of idealistic, naive person, despite all the research. But they said, well, we really want him to have the experience of a family, even though we don't think the adoption is going to work. 3 years later, we were finalized, because what they didn't understand is I'm not a quitter, and neither is Sean. And he's 36 today. He's married. He's expecting a baby. His wife is expecting a baby. And he's turned into just the most marvelous human being. So I have evidence in my life that these transformational trainings work. They work very well, but they work to the extent you work. And it's not that you go into the room and they fix you, because you're not broken. You go into the room and you learn the conversations you're living in that are keeping you stuck, and you replace them with conversations that move you forward, conversations that are pragmatic but also inspirational. What do you want in life, and how are you going to get there? And the more that you live in the distinction, it's not enough to speak the distinctions. I know people who are very good at speaking the distinctions. But what I realized is that it's not enough to speak them. You have to live them, and you have to practice them. And this is why I encourage people to do courses, but also do the follow-up seminar series, stay engaged, so that practice becomes permanent. So I've gone on a little long on that, but yeah,
I want to touch on that right there, because I do see that in you, that you understand the distinctions, but you also implement and live them. It's one thing to say, be present with your family, but I've seen you in action do it. I know when Sean calls you on the phone, it doesn't matter what you're doing, man. You drop whatever you're doing and you answer his call, because you told him that you promised, you gave your commitment that you were going to pick up every single phone call that, you know, so I see that. That's a great example.
I've had that happen while I've been in a room speaking to 100 people, like a panel at a convention. And if I'm, you know, at the front of a room in a training, if I'm leading or co-leading a training, I turn the phone off, and he knows. I've told him the phone will be off, but the rest of the time the phone is on, and I pick up. And I've said to the whole room, I said, "You're all going to have to wait," because I promised my kid I'd answer whenever he calls in case it's an emergency. And they get it, especially when I say, "No, Sean, I'm not doing anything important." So, but yeah, it's when you make a commitment, there's a whole issue of integrity is involved, and people don't really get the concept of integrity until you ask them, how many holes can I punch in your spacesuit? And they say, none, and the air goes out. They say, well, that's integrity, is you cannot allow any holes in your integrity. So you can't put a screen door on your submarine. It's not going to work.
That's pretty hilarious. I've never heard that one before. How many holes can you punch in your spacesuit? I'll leave it to you, Mr. Science Fiction, to bring it into that realm. So I love that. Discuss a bit about when you were teaching at Pepperdine, how you used this transformational context in the curriculum that you were teaching the students.
Well, they freaked out a little bit the first couple semesters because they said, what are you doing? You're doing an S training. I said, no, I'm not. I'm just demanding a professional level of engagement from my students. And they actually had one of the instructors sat in on my course and came out at the end saying, yeah, it works what he's doing. And in fact, one of my students had been, she was in her senior year, she'd been a C student for 3.5 years. Suddenly she was an A student in all of her classes. And they said, how did that happen? She said, well, David Gerrold's course. I learned about integrity and commitment, and we approached the entire process as problem solving. And I said, look, what are the elements of the problem we have to solve here? And you approach it that way. And so we broke, what are the elements of a story? And I could do the whole course here. I've actually boiled it down. I can do the whole course in a single day. But we would take 16 weeks, and they would do each week a 3-page scene that would demonstrate a specific element, a specific, like, here's, how do you do a love scene? How do you do a revealing monologue? How do you do, you know, somebody is in one emotional state and they move to another emotional state in the course of the scene. And when you have two people in a scene, both of them shift emotional states, or one of them shifts and the other refuses to. And there you get dramatic tension. We would do that all semester long. And one of my fun moments is a student who is now a very, very successful director. He was always 1 week late. Is like he would turn in, he would not get the assignment done for that week, but it would be a perfect example, an A thing of the previous week's assignment. So it was always, it was kind of like he would hear what the other, yeah, he would hear what the other students had done and he would apply it the following week. And I looked at the end of the semester, his numbers, his grades were all B, but he had learned everything that he had needed to learn in the course. So of course he got an A+. I wasn't going to cheat him out of an A he had properly earned. And it shows. Another one of my students has got some great film credits and producing credits, and another one became a very good novelist. And I can see, when I look at their work, I can see them applying the lessons of how do you make a story interesting from page to page to page. But it really is, it goes deeper than that. It goes back to the trainings. Is what are you saying about human beings? Because every scene is about two people interacting, and what happens in that space between them. You're talking about people's relationships, and all of the training, every workshop, every course is really ultimately about the relationship that comes from clean communication. And so when you put that in a story, clean communication and clean aspirations, and that the relationship comes to life with, you know, what baggage is the character dragging and what do they have to let go of. That's, I can see the connection between what happens in a training room and what happens in the keyboard, the page when I'm writing, is like these people come to life because I know them from having seen them in the training room.
Yeah. Talk about the concept, you just brought it up, clean communication. Expand on that a bit. That's important.
A lot of times we have an agenda, and we get so caught up in our agenda. And in the training room, we talk about the victim racket or attention whore or the bully, or who is they are so caught up in their own conversation of how the world works that it dominates how they communicate with other people. And clean communication is about getting through that, the victim racket or the attention whore, the whatever is getting through that agenda and having both parties speaking from authenticity. And, you know, I hate to use the word authenticity because while I might know what it means, it's become a jargon word. We talk about speaking from the heart. We say, be yourself. Well, yeah, but you have to because everyone else is taken. But most people don't know how to be themselves. We live in a culture that tells us we're not good enough, we smell bad, and unless we buy this thing or that thing or do this or wear that, we're not enough. And so we walk around with this gnawing sense of I am not enough. And really, real enlightenment has to come from I am enough, and I can handle. Here I am. I'm driving this meat puppet. I'm enough. It doesn't look like what it's supposed to look like, and it doesn't wear the clothes that someone else thinks. As soon as you abandon the judgments of culture and others, and then abandon your own judgments about what you think you should be, and simply accept the process of your own life day to day. Washing the dishes can be a meditative process. And not a chore, not a this, not a that, but simply get the creation of cleanliness. And when you can move to that, and this is why I say practice makes permanent. You cannot say, okay, I'm going to be happy all the time. No, you're not. You're going to ride the wave. This is what the courses are about. They're about learning how to ride the wave of your body has cycles, your emotions have cycles, circumstances have cycles, and when you recognize, okay, this is it, today I'm grumpy, so today I'll be grumpy. And once you accept the experience of, okay, I'm going to be grumpy today, I'm not grumpy today, but I was yesterday, okay. But once I accept this is who I am now, then you experience it out and you come out the other side. There's a thing we say in the trainings, when you're in the middle of a forest, the only way out is through. Well, when you're in the middle of whatever you're in the middle of, that's why we say be here now. But it all turns into jargon. And this is why I think the best trainings, the best courses are the ones where you actually do the experiential aspect of being in those moments, so you can recognize that you're going through that moment to the other side. I don't know if that was clear, but
no, that was very clear, and it's very powerful. That when you experience it, it's more than just sitting there in a lecture seat watching somebody talk through distinctions. It's if you experience it, you can remember it. That's when I come from. It's coming from when I experience something, I can remember the impact it had on me at that time, and then apply it into my life. And that I think is what you're saying.
Yeah, coming back to clean communication, there are people who when I'm with them, it's like we might not have seen each other for 3 years, but we pick up the conversation as if we had talked to each other yesterday. And that is because the relationship is complete. When the relationship is complete, and with no pieces missing and no agendas running, and just, I know who you are, you know who I am, I celebrate our relationship, you celebrate your relationship, I want to contribute to you, you want to contribute to me. When you have all of those things in place, the communication is complete. And it means that Dennis, who dragged me to the S training, he and I still talk to each other. It's like 45 years later, and he calls me. We talk 2 or 3 times a week, and we just pick up, and we're so candid with each other about what we're feeling, about what we want, and sometimes I ask him for coaching, and sometimes he asks me for coaching, and it's that kind of a relationship that's available because the relationship is so complete, and we contribute to each other.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, David. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's worth working for. I have that kind of friendship with you, with John Hanley Jr., with a few other people. The more people you have in your life that you can be that complete with, the stronger you are, because you have that emotional safety net.
Yeah, it's funny. I hadn't talked to you in about 4 or 5 months, maybe texts here and there, but like,
and we just pick it up.
You're on the TV screen. We're just like it was like yesterday. So yeah, definitely. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and I miss you guys. I miss you guys a lot. It's just, I made a promise I have to finish these 2 books this year, and then of course we have this baby coming, as I mentioned. And so everything, we're all focused on, we got to get the house ready, and we got to get, all of the things you need when a baby is coming to you, a crib and a this and a that and a walker and a stroller and a car seat. God, I had no idea kids would, I got Sean when he was 8. I didn't have to go through that.
Oh yeah, you're going to have 2 different kinds of car seats, depending on their age, their weight. You're going to have all that stuff. So I get it. We miss you too. We understand you are writing those 2 books, and you're up to some big things. But we always know that you're always supportive of us. So we appreciate you, and thank you for taking the time today.
Yeah. Oh, I have to do the commercial. I have a book coming out in June.
Okay.
Called Hella.
All right.
And it's a semi-sequel to a previous series. So if you've read the Jumping Off the Planet series, but that one happened almost by accident. I got annoyed at somebody else's TV show, and I wrote a book because I said, no, you don't do it that way. You do it this way.
Hey, you know what they say, right? If you're going to complain, but then do something about it. So there you go.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Good. So I'm going to put your information down below in our description. So down here, check out David's website and what you got going on.
I'm on Facebook. My website hasn't been updated in God knows how long, but I am on Facebook, and you can check out the book on Amazon.
Awesome. I'll put your Facebook link in there. And
yeah.
I love to end these interviews with a zany question. And this is one that I thought about for you. And I said, I really want to know the answer to this question. I've never asked you this question. So here it is. If you had to hang out, or if you got to hang out with one science fiction character in the history of science fiction, who would it be? Have dinner with them, have some cocktails, him, her, it, whatever
Well, it would probably be Valentine Michael Smith, the hero of Stranger in a Strange Land. And I think I would probably slap his face for being a jerk and say, look, man, here you are telling people that learn the Martian language and you're going to get enlightened and all of that. It's like, but you bailed on us, Valentine Michael Smith is probably the most interesting character in science fiction. There are a lot of others, but he is one of the few characters who's actually interested in making a difference for the people around him. And I think that makes him interesting to me, because he wasn't just, what am I going to win for me? It's what can I do for the people, for human beings. And it was a very ambitious book. I think it's fatally flawed, but I love the ambition in it.
Mm-hmm. That's a great insight. And that book has been brought up in, the transformational context, and people who are doing this type of work, they'll read that book. So that's fascinating, Mr. David. Well, thank you again. for joining us.
Thank you.
We're very grateful to have you as part of our Triton tribe, and wish you the best luck with your books in June. And we'll catch up sometime after that. I'll let you finish your books up, and then let's go out and have dinner, because we're both here in the Southern California area.
I'd love to. I love that idea. I love the chance to talk to a real grown-up once in a while. I love my kids, but they're a different generation, and they have different concerns.
I hear you.
Once in a while, I want to talk to someone who's, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. All right, David, have a great rest of your day. Thank you again. Take care.
Okay.